The Survivor Specialist Phil and Will are back with another episode of everything you need to know about. Third to last one here. We are really getting down to it. All we have left after this are Q and Coach. So we are in the home stretch, and today we are telling you everything you need to know about Mike White from David vs. Goliath, probably better known now, I would assume, for the White Lotus. People might be tuning into Survivor because of Mike White, not maybe the other way around. But yeah, first time he played, he finished second place on David versus Goliath. Really had a weak final tribal council. That was kind of what hurt him, was that he didn't really sell why he deserved to win the game. And there were people who were willing to vote for him that were just like, Nick did a better job at final tribal. And here's Mike again. So what do we want to start off with?
I don't know if I would call it a weak final tribal council performance in the term. Like, it's not like he went in with some goal and then failed at it. Like, I think he was honest, and what he said honestly was that, like, he doesn't need the money and he doesn't really want to win and he doesn't really care. He's just glad he made it 39 days. And like, he didn't, I guess it's objectively bad in the terms of like what your goal of Survivor is. If your goal of Survivor is to win the $1 million and be a Survivor champion, then yes, that's very bad tribal council performance. But like, if that's not your goal, then like, I don't know if you can like say it's a failure, because his goal wasn't to win jury votes at final tribal council. And so if that wasn't what his intended goal was, then he didn't necessarily fail at that. And it wasn't bad in terms of like what he wanted to do. I think he wanted to just kind of explain his game, say why he's there. And he didn't want to take away $1 million from somebody that absolutely needed it when he already has millions of dollars. So I think it's like, I don't know. And that is, for me, the biggest question about Mike White. And I think that's what we'll talk about mostly is, does he want to win Survivor 50? Is there a world in which he can win Survivor 50? Can he get the votes? Is it something he's going to try to even do? If he makes it to Final Tribal Council this time, is he going to argue that he should be the winner? To me, that's the biggest question. And I also think we should talk about, like, why is he here? This seems like stunt casting to me, especially, and we've talked about this with Mike White. His celebrity has grown exponentially since David vs. Goliath. I mean, David vs. Goliath, he's like the guy you kind of recognize from School of Rock. Like, oh yeah, that's Ned Schneebly. Oh, and he also wrote it. He's a filmmaker, writer. He's done a couple other things that you may have heard of. I know at the time he got ripped for being the writer of the Emoji Movie, even though he said he was like hired on that project to do a rewrite for like a month or something, and like it wasn't like his baby or brainchild or anything, which is so funny looking back at that. I remember so much grief he was getting about Emoji Movie, and then he drops The White Lotus and is now that he's a household name now. So for me, I think he's here on 50 because Jeff knows how big of a celebrity Mike White now is, and that people love The White Lotus so much. It's one of the most watched shows in the country. It's up for a bunch of Emmys this season. And to have the creator of that show go on Survivor 50, Jeff wants those eyeballs. He wants to bring in fans of the White Lotus to watch Survivor. That's why Mike White's here. I mean, at least I'm not saying he's a bad character that he doesn't need to return. I guess for me, it's like, why bring on somebody who has said in a final tribal council, who's made it to the end, I don't want to win the show? Like, why do you want to bring somebody like that on? So it's stunt casting.
You've said a mouthful, and I'm ready to jump in because that's how I feel.
Sorry,
right?
Did I say too much?
No. I think though you kind of hit the points that I'm looking to hit while we do this episode, because look, I'm excited to watch Mike White play again, right? David vs. Goliath is one of those casts that is so great that Mike White actually does get lost a little bit in the mix. Like when you have Christian and Gabby, when you have Nick, when you have Davey, when you have Angelina, Mike White is there for a lot of great moments, but Mike White seems to be really subtle in a lot of what he's doing. When we did our defining episode for Mike White, we actually chose the one where Natalie gets voted out of the game, because Mike White is the one who flips to Nick and Lirsa in that moment against Natalie and Angelina. And it's very interesting when you watch his gameplay there. It's very subtle and it's very quiet. And it's very like, that's how he always played though in this season. He was never too much in the forefront, but then when moves needed to be made, such as Carl going home, Mike is a deciding vote in that situation when Angelina actually votes a different way than him. And so it's really interesting. I think Mike White has a lot of upside. I also agree with you. This is stunt casting. If a massive celebrity like this wants to be on the show and has already been on the show, so you know that you're going to get good stuff out of him, why not put him on? However, I do feel that for an iconic season, for a major season, if you're not coming out looking to win the game, I don't want to see you on the season. And that's how we always felt like with Second Chance when Abby Maria comes back, or in Game Changers when you get like certain players. I don't even remember who off the top of my head, but like Beast Mode Cowboy was never going to win Game Changers. And it's like, I want my seasons full of people who can legitimately win. And I don't think Mike White can win this season. I talked early on that people were going to use him so that he could, because of like his fame and his clout and the fact that he is a really likable guy. His cast from David vs. Goliath absolutely loves him. But at the same time, I'm like, maybe Mike White gets near the end again and he just says, yeah, I don't really care. Like, give the money to somebody. Oh, cool. I'm sitting next to Cirie. I'd rather Cirie get the crown. And I don't want somebody playing dead at Final Tribal Council.
Yeah. That's, I think, the biggest negative towards Mike, because he is really good TV too. Like, he's a big name, but he also is very funny. He has witty one-liners, even at challenges. Obviously, his confessionals are really good. So I'm happy he's here. He's actually one of the, I think I gave him a 9 when I did my 0 through 10. I said there are no 10s on this cast, and Mike White is a 9. So like Colby was a 9. I think Angelina was a 9. So I am excited to see him. But if he does manage to wiggle his way into the end game somehow, I do think I really need him to say, this is Survivor 50. I don't care that I already have money. Like, I can donate the money to charity. I can go for this title. Like, I want the title of Sole Survivor. And it's funny, he has a confessional in David vs. Goliath. I think it's his first confessional, where I'm actually rewatching the season right now. I'm not through it all. But he says, everyone in Hollywood wants an Oscar. It's like, I don't want an Oscar. I want to win Survivor. But it's like, do you?
Yeah.
Because you got to the end and then told people not to vote for you, essentially. So.
And here's the other thing, Will, on that, because I just think this is so interesting. Like, think about the people who didn't vote for him to win. Alec, Carl, Davey, Gabby. These are like legitimately his friends. I don't know about Gabby or Davey at this point, but like Carl and Alec are friends with Mike White. Like, Carl was just on the last season of White Lotus. Alec obviously had a big speaking part in season 1. And I know they keep in touch because Alec and him were out in Fiji at some point not too long ago. These are people who are legitimately friends with him. He gets those 2 votes. It's 5-5. Angelina probably votes for Mike to win. And so he wasn't even able to convince, even then, though, I think if he fights a little bit harder, maybe he does get John. Maybe he gets Dan. I don't know. But it's like these people that he's close with, these people that he's good friends with, he didn't even get their votes at the end of the day because his pitch just wasn't there. And yeah, that's a great soundbite, right? Like, Mike White knows how to sell himself. He's obviously had to pitch the White Lotus to HBO as a writer, sole writer and director of an entire series, an anthology series, and hope that it's going to get picked up for more and more and whatever. He knows what he's doing. That's a great soundbite. But I also agree with you. Like, that line is not what then plays out for the rest of the season. For me, it almost felt like Mike White wanted to get to Final Tribal Council, and that was his goal for the season.
Right. And that probably hasn't changed. I think that's the disappointing part. So, like, what is our best case scenario? I know we just did our in the hands of the fans, where the hands fans land. We talked about best case scenario for those decisions, and I'm honestly thinking of Mike. Like, what's the best and worst case scenario for Mike White? Like, Mike White getting to the end and taking up a spot at Final Tribal Council and then not pleading his case to win. Like, to me, that's almost like worst case scenario.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to see that. I think best case is like makes the merge. We get enough of him where I think we've already talked about, we think we're going to lose a lot of players early here, 2 people per episode for maybe the first 3 episodes. And then our cast is then down to 18. We'll have to do a couple more double boot episodes, but if we can get him to, final 12, final 10, where we can actually let him shine and see his funny gameplay, and then maybe he makes some good moves and then he gets blindsided or idled out. I think that's probably what I want to see from Mike.
Yeah, I think the worst case scenario, and it won't happen on this season, but this would be the worst case scenario, would almost be like a Mike White gets the Rob father kind of treatment, where it's like, whoa, Mike White gets to just run this game. And he gets to be the dominant force in the game because of, because of who he is. Like, I mean, this is probably some of the people who are playing this game, especially you think about like the people who played maybe a little bit later. Like maybe not so much your Colbys, because he got to hit that like level of fame that was weird and crazy. That's hard to believe for Survivor. But maybe some of like your Aubreys or Chrissy. I mean, a lot of these people already played with him. But this is going to be one of the biggest, most famous people most of these people are going to meet, like other than Jeff. Like this is going to be one of the more famous people, especially for new era players. Like that could be a really big thing for them, where maybe they get a little blinded by Mike White. That's the worst case scenario, is Mike White just rolls through the game and has no competition. But Mike White's also not that kind of player from what I watch on David versus Goliath. He's also somebody who, I think Mike White is big into, who can I hang out with? And like, who do I actually want to be around? And I think that really came to the forefront in his season, because Natalie drove him nuts and he said, great, I'm voting you out. And then he turned around the next time and said, Lyrsa, now you're driving me nuts. Now I'm going to go back and vote you out rather than getting rid of Angelina. And we see that as the game unfolds, he does kind of start to vote out the people who annoy him more than maybe what might be the best strategic move. So yeah, I don't think he'd play the Boston Rob type game, but that would be the worst case scenario. Would be his celebrity status allows him to just waltz through the game.
Yeah, and I don't even think, if that does happen, I don't even think that comes from Mike White himself. I think that comes from the other players. So if you go out there and you're like, I love the White Lotus, I've seen all these survivors have cameos on the White Lotus, like that's what I want out of this. I'm on a tribe with him. I'm going to be friends with him. Like it's between Mike White and someone else that are like, challenge strength is up in the air, let's say. Then okay, let's keep Mike around, because I want to become better friends with him. I want to go to the Hollywood parties. I want to meet Angelina Jolie. I want to meet all his celebrity friends. I want to be on the way. Like, I want to do all that. Then it's not even Mike being this like Rob father, like putting out this dominating game, like keep me around because I'll give you all these gifts after the show. It's like kind of internalized by the other players on his tribe. And then he just never gets voted out. And that, that would not be fun.
No, it's not exciting.
Because you could argue that in some way he's kind of a goat. Like he's kind of one of the few players that you could say are drawing dead from the start, where like this player is never going to win a season of Survivor because of his status and wealth just heading into a season. So like, why not bring that guy to the finals, especially if you can hang out with him, be friends with him, and then get all these extra things after that? Yeah, that could pose a threat. But I've said this before many times, like, especially in New Era and Modern Survivor, where it's like, if someone is such an obvious GOAT, well, then they're taking up a spot at Final 3, and then that's one fewer spots available. So I don't want that player in the game. Like, that's a spot that's not available for me. So let's take him out.
I also think what's very fascinating about Mike too, and like you had already mentioned this, where he's not he wasn't that big of a threat. It was kind of like we sort of know who he is. I think though he did have to play with a little bit of celebrity on him in that first season, and he was able to navigate it really easily. So I'm curious what his pitch will be to people this time around, because I agree with you. If he starts saying, I can't win, just bring me to Final 3, you're going to win, I'll pat you on the back and say, hope it's you. Other people are going to say, well, why does Mike White get to sit at Final 3? I want to sit at Final 3. I want to be that person there. If you're somebody like Angelina, maybe you're saying to yourself, maybe I can't beat Mike again. I already lost to Mike once. I can't take Mike to the end again. And so I am very curious how he's going to balance that now into this season, where he's such a bigger threat, because on his season, he got one vote the entire season, which I think is very impressive in what was such a chaotic season of Survivor with all the blind sides and everything that happened. And that vote didn't come till Final 5 when Allison was voted out 4-1. So his name was not coming out of people's mouths. And honestly, I don't think people were looking at Mike as a GOAT as the season was unfolding, because Nick had to fight for his life at that final tribal council to beat Mike. And he gets him 7-3. That's a 2-vote swing, and we're tied up. And then Angelina's casting the deciding vote. So I'm curious what his spiel and what his pitch will be this time, because I don't know, like he did a good job with his threat level last time, but I agree with you. People aren't going to want to just take him to the end or let him waltz to the end.
Yeah, I don't know about like, and this is a question you could ask on many Survivor seasons, like the player that gets no votes cast against them the whole time, or that they only had one vote cast against them the whole time. In this example of Mike, like, is that because they're so good at avoiding being the target, or is that because they're not a threat to anybody and they have no chance to win, or that they're not doing anything that appears to be threatening in any way? So like a great example of that is Gavin in Edge of Extinction. He goes the whole season, I'm pretty sure,
Yeah, he doesn't get a vote.
doesn't get a vote against him, and I think he votes correctly every single time, and he loses to a guy who was voted out on like day 9.
Yeah.
And so because I think even though that was brought up at Final Tribal Council, is like, yeah, Gavin, you didn't have any votes against you because no one was threatened by you. No one was doing anything. And I think, like, again, I think Mike played a great game, David Goliath, but I also think a reason that he was able to navigate the game without ever being a prominent target or a prominent threat is because people know he can't win.
Yeah.
And it's no fault of his own. I mean, it is his own fault for being super successful and wealthy.
Yeah. Why would you
like,
do that, man?
But yeah, but it's like not and it's not that he's a bad Survivor player, but like, you know, $1 million is a lot of money and people have become very close out there. And I think even Mike feels that way. Like, why would I want to have $1 million given to me when Angelina I'm sitting next to and Nick I'm sitting next to, who like both badly need the money? Like, or maybe not super badly, not like they're like on the street or anything, but like that would, where it would, you know, positively change somebody's entire life. First, for me, I would just like give it away. Yeah, that's stuff.
I mean, that's going to be the question coming into this. I do think in the case of Mike, it was more of his relationships that kept him from getting votes. I do agree. I do get what you're saying, because there's some players where I think like the perfect game type mentality is one of the most overrated things in Survivor. Because I do agree with you. If you got no votes through the entire season, does that mean that you were that good? Or does that mean that people just never saw you as a threat? And obviously you get the case of like a Jeremy Collins, who does play a perfect game. He just played a really good game. And there's other people like you already brought up with Gavin. I feel like Mike falls in like the middle of that. I don't think people were saying I want to go to the end with Mike White. I mean, remember at the end, Mike ends up sitting next to Kara making fire. He's actually the first person, once the new version of fire came into play, he was the first person to win fire and then not win the game. Wendell and Ben had both won the game after winning fire in their seasons. So Mike was the first one to not win. But he obviously had to be seen as somewhat of a threat there, or at least a bigger threat than Angelina, because he was put into fire in the first place.
Right. And as being a bigger threat than Angelina, like, I don't know if you have to be that threatening to achieve that title.
I mean, I completely agree with that. But I do think Mike fits somewhere in the middle. He's somewhere in the middle. He's not.
No, I'm not saying he's a complete goat, but there's like, you have this kind of, there's this halo around you, you know, the whole time. That person can't win. So like, do I need to worry about them right now? Probably not your first priority.
Now, let me ask you this question, because obviously, you know, you've been out there. So you know that like what stuff, and you and I are both huge proponents of this stuff is not rigged. You guys are crazy. Do you think though in people's minds that there is a fear of like Mike White is good friends with Jeff? He fought to get fire tokens not brought back into the game. He fought to make sure Redemption Island wasn't on San Juan del Sur. Like, this is a guy who talked to Jeff, still talks to Jeff, but was talking to Jeff before he even went on the show and was like convincing him of things. Do you think that weighs on people's minds when they go out there and say, what would Jeff like more than for Mike White to be the representative of Survivor and win season 50? And maybe that leads to people actually wanting to vote him out sooner?
I doubt it, because I think Jeff has a lot of favorites and a lot of friends, and we've seen a lot of his favorites and friends come back on the show and not perform well. I mean, if we look back to our most recent All Returning Players season, who's Jeff's favorite? Okay, who is it?
Give him one win, he can't give him two. Boston Rob,
right? I mean, how did Boston Rob do on Winners at War? Not that well.
Was he in every episode? Will? Yes, he was.
Right, but that's not rigging.
I know. I'm just saying.
Rigging it. See, like if there were more clear examples of the show rigging for Jeff's favorites, then like I could get behind that. But again, Jeff is already winning with having Mike White be on the show. He's drawing in a new audience. I guarantee you there will be a substantial amount of people. And maybe it won't be, I'm not saying like half the people who watch 50 are going to be first time Survivor watchers that are coming from the White Lotus, but could it be 5%? Could it be 10%? Could you get a 5 to 10% uptick in viewership solely based on this one casting decision? That's bigger than pretty much anyone maybe ever. Apart from maybe Parv or Boston Rob, but I don't even know about that. I think people who are fans of Parv and Boston Rob are Survivor fans, so it's like they're watching anyway. So I think there's no need to go out of the way and like make sure Mike White stays on a long time or is safe. I think you draw people in who are White Lotus fans. They're going to check out Survivor. They're going to either like it or not. And hey, maybe it helps if he stays to the first like 5 or 6 episodes. So you get these new viewers invested in the cast and like the rest of the people on the show other than Mike White. But the Survivor's not rigged. I mean, I don't even know why we're talking about this.
I know it's not, but I'm just saying, because I always think like, look, you have Stephanie LaGrossa on this season. And one of the biggest conversations around this was how Danny Boatwright didn't want to tell the producers things in confessional. She admitted that right after the show. She has said it since. Like, she didn't want to say things because she thought the game that they were going to like tip off Stephanie. Like, that was a concern of hers. So she played it closer to the vest. And so that's just something that look, every one of these people is being asked back for the 50th season. They're all there. I just wonder if that sneaks into your brain when you're starting to starve and you're getting all of a sudden Mike White gets pulled away for another confessional, another confessional, another confessional. And you're like, man, maybe we just got to get rid of Mike White. Also, people talk about this all the time. Mike White didn't eat up a lot of screen time on David vs. Goliath, but now being that he is the guy who created the White Lotus, if you're looking to get a lot of screen time on this season, you probably want to get rid of Mike, you want to get rid of Coach, and you want to get rid of Devins. Like, those are probably the first 3 people you're looking at to get out of the game. Because even though Mike on his season, I think, was 3rd or 4th in confessionals, and he really wasn't like I think he was 47 for the whole season. Now, I mean, the story, you can hear the confessionals in the early portion of this game of just like, yeah, I made the White Lotus. And yeah, I still love Survivor. Like, if he's in one episode, he's getting 15 confessionals in that 90 minutes.
Yeah, and especially because like White Lotus, you could argue, and there are a lot of similarities between the two shows. Like Mike White has even said like he's very much inspired by Survivor when he writes a season of the White Lotus, and like even the whole animal thing, especially in the first season with the animal theming and the tribal music in the background. Like, it's almost like cut in the way of like, these are people living on a beach, but it's in a hotel. It's a different class and a different setting completely. But it's like, we have groups of people interacting in a kind of tropical beach-like environment, and we're playing animal noises and we're dealing with like personal stories and conflict. And he said that like Survivor players are fully realized characters. They're fully human. They have flaws, they have wants, they have needs. And why are they fully realized humans? Because they are real people. And that when he goes to write characters to the White Lotus, he tries to think of them as a fully formed person, and honestly like a Survivor character, where it's like, and especially him being out there and having played it, it's like he knows what people are good at, what are bad at, like their strengths, their weaknesses, in like a fully shaped person with their nuances and quirks and all that. And like he takes from Survivor to create the White Lotus. And that honestly could be a reason of why Mike is even back in the first place. Like, I think he finds the Survivor experience fun and rewarding on its own. Again, that's probably not the best reason to be there. We want people there who want to win the crown, win the title, win the $1 million. But that's probably not Mike, and maybe that's okay.
I mean, it's like what, the end of season 1 of White Lotus with the kid on the boat. Like that to me is Mike White. Like, that to me is Mike pretty much saying like, when I got away from all technology, I was my happiest. And that's him on Survivor. Like, I really do feel that kid is probably so based on how Mike White's experience was. I mean, working in Hollywood and dealing with like this type of industry where it's, who's calling, who's texting, who's emailing all the time. You kind of are on it. He gets to go play Survivor. Everybody has to leave him alone. He doesn't have to worry about it. I know a lot of these people are friends and everything like that, but he can just turn his brain off. And when you hit that level in that type of industry, like, when do you ever get that opportunity? You even go on even in the White Lotus, like, oh, you go on a week-long vacation, you still got to answer emails, you still got to do this. Like, on Survivor, he does not have a phone. He has nothing. So I do think that, for Mike, it's the adventure, it's the excitement, it's, he loves the game and everything like that. But I do think it's a bit of I get to turn my brain off and I'm doing what I love here.
Yeah, and it's funny, not having a phone is a big storyline in season 3.
Yeah.
Take away all the phones.
Yeah. Look at that.
That's a good point. He gets to get away from it all. What are you've seen all the White Lotus. How would
I
you
have
rank?
not actually. I didn't see season 3. I haven't watched season 3 yet. I know. I watched I can't tell people that, but I haven't watched season 3.
Oh, that's crazy.
I know. I have to be hush hush about that.
Yeah.
Nobody tell anyone.
Yeah, well, you also you don't want to get spoiled. So like you should probably watch it.
I haven't been spoiled yet, so that's pretty good.
My season rankings go 2, 3, 1. I actually didn't even like the first season that much. I know
really? I love the first season.
I know
Maybe it's because I
love
watched it so much later than everybody.
I watched it later too, and like I don't know. I just don't think the individual stories are as strong, and there's like less overlap with the different sections of like the characters are more on their own thing. So it's like the family only interacts with the family, with like Sydney Sweeney and the kid you just talked about, and the friend, and like Steve Zahn. Like that's their own story. And then you have like the couple only really interacts with the hotel, and then like Jennifer Coolidge is like on her own thing, our own experiential thing. So it's like, I don't know. The other seasons seems like there's more crossover between the core groups, and I find that to be the most interesting.
Yeah, I get that. I mean, season 2 definitely has a lot more of that. I wonder too, like, was season 1 like that because of the way they had to film it? Like, because it was during the
that's how the show came out. It was like, how do we shoot TV in this COVID environment? We need one location, we need one bubble. And that's how the White Lotus was born. Something they can shoot at just one place. And there was, not to say there was not any crossover. There definitely was, but I also just didn't find the characters as interesting. It was still good. It was still fun to watch, but like, I think they've gotten, season 2 is my favorite. And then season 3, like it was a little bit messy, but it was still very entertaining.
Yeah. Like I said, I haven't seen season 3 yet, but I love season 1. I really do.
I know most people do.
Yeah. But anyway, so what else is there? What else do we need to know about Mike now that we did this?
What's his last name? It's Mike White is his first name. And what's his last name?
I know it's so hard not to say Mike White. It's like with Rick Devens. You just want to say Rick Devens every single time. This is actually, probably worth. That's what I was just going to say. If you look at Mike White's age, I actually do feel like that might be important to mention here before we get done, because when he went out and played last time, he was 47. Now he's 55. I mean, mid 50s Survivor, you do not do well on Survivor. Like, there's been 2 winners over the age of 50 in the entire history of the show. You might be saying, well, 47, how much of a difference? Well, there's a lot of winners, like not a lot, but there's more winners in their 40s. Like Denise was in her 40s, Tina was in her 40s. So I'm sure there's more, but like there's more people. I feel like as you get older, there's less of a blueprint for winning Survivor in general. Now there's a lot more people in their 50s on this season than there has been on any other season in the history of the show, but it's still worth mentioning. Probably not that Mike White was ever like great at challenges. This isn't going to be, oh man, Mike's struggling now to keep up. I don't think anybody's gonna be worried about that in the first place.
Yeah, I don't think so. And again, I think if we are getting two tribal councils an episode, I think challenges become less important. I don't know if the players will figure that out, but it's like, if you take the extreme, let's say you had 10 tribes and there's only first place wins. You're like, okay, we're probably not going to win anyway. We only have a 1 in 10 shot at winning.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, you want to be the winner, but I think on a season like this, you're going to have to prepare for tribal council every time. So it's more important to have people you trust and people you can work with.
And we've talked about the tribes a little bit, and we're going to be talking about this tribe again next time because it's Coach's tribe, and it's the Teal tribe, Blake's favorite. Mike ends up there with Jonathan, Coach, Charlie, Chrissy, Dee, Camilla, Tiffany. Is that a rough tribe for him or a good tribe for him?
I don't know if there really would be a rough tribe for him, because I think people are naturally going to be like drawn to his presence. So like he could really go out, like hang out with any of these people. I think someone like Jonathan might be tough. Jonathan's going to want to keep the tribe strong. That's not really Mike, but I think there's enough people here like that he can interact. Like I think he's going to be fun.
Yeah. I feel like Camilla, Chrissy, I feel like the women here would be good. I also feel like Charlie being a pop.
Charlie, I could see totally wanting to. Yeah.
Yeah. It just comes down to what does coach want? Because if coach is willing to play with Mike White, I think that's good for Mike White.
I think coach would love. He's like,
You
give
think
me a
so?
role in the White Lotus, man, please.
Or you think
Coach
coach
would
already
love
knows
that.
he's got a role in the White Lotus, so he doesn't have to worry about it. So he's like, I got to get Mike out of here. I'm the star of this season.
Yeah. Just got a
So,
phone call.
I heard that.
But
All right.
I think that covers Mike. I mean, it's not as like it's not as much of a question as the other ones we've done. Like, how far can they go? Can they win? It's like this feels like this guy can't win. Hopefully, we get enough of him. Hopefully, the outside factors of his celebrity status don't influence the game. Like, that's what we want.
But you said you were a 9 when this first came out. Are you still feeling that?
Yeah, no, and I think it's a very good idea because of the popularity of the White Lotus to like get new fans and bring them into the show. Like, it's good for everybody if Survivor is popular, right? Like, we want the show to continue going on. We have a podcast about the show. Like, the more people that are into it, the more people are talking about it. That's better for the podcast, more fun for us. Like, the more the country gets back into Survivor, the better.
Yeah.
At least for me.
Yeah. No, I'm in on the Mike casting. At first, I had my whole speech and pitch and everything like that. But you know what? Like, I'm still going to be entertained by Mike. So
Definitely.
Yeah. So I'm into it. All right. Well, that's going to do it for this episode. Thank you all so much for listening. All we have left are Q and Coach. That is it for the Everything You Need to Know About series. We got still plenty more defining episodes coming out, including Mike's, which again, we haven't gotten to over there yet, but I already hinted it's the one where Natalie gets voted out of the game instead.
Which I don't think he flipped on Angelina there. I'm just going to say, because I remember Angelina after saying, I wrote Lursa's name down just so that it was a 3-2 vote, so that Natalie would know I didn't vote for her, so that I could ask for her jacket.
No, I'm more saying Mike, though, in that episode really pushes for Natalie to go. He's more flipping on Natalie, and then he turns around and he goes back.
Okay, but no, it still could be the defining episode. It was more like Angelina was not left out of that, even though
no, she wasn't. She wasn't. No,
it was the
no
jacket
way.
episode.
No way. But Mike is the one who pushes that. So anyway, that's our episode that we're doing for him. But thank you all so much for listening. Hope you enjoyed this episode. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you next time.
See ya.